Hello and welcome to the sideboard. Well, sort of the sideboard. We're here at SCG Live Studios.
Yes, we recorded this a couple days ago, actually.
Yeah, because Brad was so confident in his deck that he decided that he wanted to do a deck ahead of time, and he has brought something interesting to the table. So tell me a little bit about what you've got here.
All right, so it is, a resurgence of the Aristocrat deck. I liked a lot of things that they were doing at the Pro Tour, but one of the major things was the format was more aggressive. And so a lot of the cards that they wanted were really good there. But now, because of like junk and other mid-range strategies that are taking over the metagame, you can do some cool things with the deck, like get away with Blood Artist and Blasphemous Act, which is what I'm really targeting. Like, I want to beat the mid-range strategies and the early aggressive strategies, so I'm focusing on them, and I'm just running.
Right. So what you've done here is that you've taken out Champion of the Parish,
Yep.
Orzhov Charm, and Silverblade Paladin, and instead you've added Blood Artist, Boros Reckoner, and Blasphemous Act.
Yes. It doesn't have the raw power draws that the Aristocrats have, but one of the cool things it does do is it makes Skurzdag High Priest much more powerful in the early game. There's more times that I will get a turn 3 5/5 demon out of it just using Doom Traveler and Cartel Aristocrat in combo with it, as well as you can draw one of those pieces by turn 3, and you can just play both of them on turn 3 since you get to make a Spirit Token with Doom Traveler. But yeah, so the deck is way more like a combo deck than the Aristocrats was, and there's just a ton of different things. You do have the 8 Aristocrats to go with your Blasphemous Axe if you don't have Blood Artist and Boros Reckoner. But a lot of times, especially in this aggressive metagame where everyone's just putting permanents on the board, permanents are so much more powerful right now, so they'll shock themselves to play their Arbor Elves and their Lingering Souls. I've actually done this 5 times where I just play a turn 2 Blood Artist, a turn 3 Boros Reckoner, and just cast Blasphemous Act on turn 4. The next turn, don't attack, don't play any other spell, and they're dead.
And they're dead because they've taken 15 from the Blood Artist Boros Reckoner.
From my side of the board.
From your side of the board. And then on their side of the board, they've either shocked themselves or they've played Lingering Souls or some more creatures like Arbor Elves and things like that. That's pretty spectacular.
Yeah, and that's why I'm running Syrian Spear over Orzhov Charm, because the deck is a combo deck. It has a lot of reach, so you want more. You just want to be able to hit them in the head for 3, and then you can usually get rid of their...
So the Boros Reckoner Blasphemous Act was sort of the noob combo that you added. It's sort of like the Halo 2 pistol plus battle rifle combo that you added to an already somewhat powerful strategy.
Oh yeah, Blasphemous Act was in their sideboard originally to deal with those mid-range strategies, but that's just what the metagame is now. And it is very powerful against decks that don't have right removal, as well as, they will bring Abrupt Decay in against you, and they'll bring in answers, but the deck has so many threats that need answering immediately. Like High Priest has to die immediately, or they're going to be run over by 5/5s. And so the Boros Reckoners do live, as well as you just get damage in with Cartel Aristocrat. It has an ability that's subtle, which is unblockability by sacking a permanent, and especially if you have a Blood Artist in play, you get to deal 3 damage a turn, which adds up when you're flashbacking Lingering Souls. You're trading Lingering Souls for their permanents with Blood Artist in play, and you have so many resources like Doom Traveler that you can just throw away.
Yeah, it certainly seems like the current metagame, or at least for the last month or so, has been a sort of gentleman's agreement to just be like, you remember when all of the Wolf Run mirrors were happening, and it was like, all right, whoever activates Primeval Titan the most wins.
Yes.
It seems like whoever activates Thragtusk the most wins, and that's just the argument we've had now. All right, I've done it 4 times, you've done it 3 times, I guess I win. And this deck goes both under and over the Thragtusk strategy. Very
much over. It doesn't matter how many times they Thragtusk. You have flying creatures like Aristocrat to deal some damage, but double Boros Reckoner into a Blasphemous Act just wins the game. And it's unbelievable. Yeah, I really think this is well positioned. The only big problem for the deck is Esper. It even has a decent blue-white-red matchup because they're more creature-oriented without a lot of wraths. But Esper's a tough game 1 and not that great of a game 2. That's my matchup that I'm giving a little bit of an edge away from.
Now, one of the most curious cards to me in the deck is down there in the mana base, you have an Orzhov Guildgate.
Yeah, and
you were explaining to me that 16 sometimes just isn't enough.
Yeah, the deck does want a 17th Black Source very badly, but this is the one time that, these are the things that scare me about a deck. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe this deck is just bad, because A, my mana base is awkward with a Guildgate, and B, we'll get to it eventually, but I need one more sideboard slot. And, when people people always want that cyber slot, but when you really desperately need it, there's a flaw in the deck left. Like, I can't sideboard perfectly right now. I have to I'm missing one card for the Blitz matchup, and that scares me a lot because I'm probably just wrong, or there's a card off somewhere and I haven't figured it out yet. But I'm still just winning a lot with it, so I'm fine with it. And yes, there is the Guildgate, and it does come into play on turn 1. Like, we don't have Champion of the Pair, so it is a turn 1 play, and it's a turn 3 play sometimes. But just making sure that you hit your black since you have so many black spells is important.
Now, we were talking about the sideboard. Let's move over to the sideboard. You were telling me that this deck actually didn't start out with an Aristocrats shell. It just sort of became that way because the Aristocrats, as weird as it looks, is a strategy that some people have gotten to organically, like you. And this actually started out as a token strategy. So tell me a little bit about that.
All right, so the original main deck was an Intangible Virtue, Assemble the Legion, Sorin, Lingering Souls deck. And it had the Aristocrats as well, and Boros Reckoner. And I still was running Blasphemous Axe, so I wanted that. It didn't have as much removal. It didn't have the Doom Travelers or the Blood Artists. And that deck was fine, but the mid-range matchup was really rough. It was good against control. It was really good against hyper-aggressive decks. But Assemble is very slow, and it's the kind of card you only want when you have Intangible Virtue to go with it against decks like Jund, Esper, Blue, White, Red. But I was just getting rolled over before Assemble could get online because I don't have enough disruptive elements in the main. So they became sideboard slots. And the first time I tried Blood Artist and High Priest, the deck was unbelievable. So I eventually just moved them to the sideboard since they were really good in the matches I wanted. And because this deck is such a mid-range hoser, you don't need a separate. I board one card against an Avacyn's Pilgrim Thragtusk deck that doesn't have Unbury Rights, and I board 5 against Unbury Rights strategies.
So your main, this is built to beat mid-range. The sideboard has a package. Yes. It's a token package that comes in against what? You bring in the Sorins, Intangible Virtues, and Assemble the Legions.
Alongside Duress against Jund, and then add the Slaughter Games against Esper and Blue, White, Red. One of the only ways that the control decks really beat me is to cast Sphinx's Rev, obviously. That's their best card. But if they don't have Sphinx's Rev in their deck anymore, they can't possibly beat you because all of your cards just generate so much card advantage. It's impossible to kill the Aristocrats once they resolve. Sorin keeps ticking up or down, which is brutal when you get an emblem. And Assemble the Legions, we all know what that does against Esper. Yeah.
It's a planeswalker you can't attack.
Yes, and I did play Obsidian for a while over the actual Assemble the Legions I was having just Obsidians. They didn't work with the Intangible Virtues, which I didn't like. And because Junk is integrating Obsidian so much lately, I'm seeing more murders and tragic slips and things like that against Obsidian. So they're dying more often now. Even I'm seeing Orzhov Charm out of Esper decks.
So the other card that is worth discussing in the sideboard is Tormod's Crypt.
Yeah.
There are lots of options for a graveyard-based deck in Standard right now. You can play Tormod's Crypt, you can play Purify the Grave, you can play Rest in Peace, you could even play things like Dryad Militant. Yeah. Why did you decide to go with Tormod's Crypt?
All right, well, it isn't the most powerful graveyard removal, obviously Rest in Peace is, but if you look at our deck, Rest in Peace is actually kind of good against us. It shuts off our High Priest, our Blood Artist, our Lingering Souls, and our Tragic Slips. So we can't do that. Our deck doesn't actually function. Even Doom Traveler, right? It cuts almost half of our deck when we play it. And I would play Purify the Grave if I had a Plains over an Orzhov Guildgate, but that's just brutal. I'm joking. Right. But Tormod's Crypt it costs 0 and it's a threat. I actually have yet to activate it, and I have won 10 matches because of it. And that's just because they don't get the option to Unbury Rights anymore, and they don't do it because you put so much pressure on them that they have to keep reacting to you. And if they can't Angel Serenity you at all, you win the game. So if you ever Slaughter Games Angel, they have a tough time beating you. But the Tormod's Crypts just threaten that for 0 mana. And sure, Rakdos Charm's actually probably the other best one if it was free, because it can just be another small Blasphemous Act, which is actually really good. As well as just force them to use their mana that turn. And Purify can get them, and I did test it, but I do just like the subtlety of just being a 0 mana spell when I want to cast Falcon Wrath Restrict.
Right, because you're curving out with this deck a lot. You don't have a ton of 1s, but you also have come into play tapped land and some 1s. You have a lot of 2s, a lot of 3s, and of course you want to be playing Falcon Wrath Aristocrat on turn 4 when it's most powerful.
Yeah, and if you're afraid of them going Mulch into Unbury Rights or Grizzly Salvage into Unbury Rights in the mid game because of their mana acceleration, you have these Aristocrats. Plus, you want it to be tournament script because you're not dealing with any of their 1-drops in the matchup. I actually board out all of my spot removal. I take out all 3 Tragic Slips and the Searing Spheres because you want to Blasphemous Act them and you want their mana guys in play to trigger your Blood Artists and to make the card cheaper.
So you've actually, now this isn't just theory crafting, you've had a lot of testing success with this, and you also have a friend of yours that had real life world success with
this made my day. I was actually in Orlando doing commentary, and the day was like awesome, Cedric's amazing, but the best feeling in the world is the entire day my friend is annihilating a PTQ, and it was Jake Van Lunen. And for anyone that knows me well, they know that I love Jake Van Lunen. I've done commentary with him. He's one of my best friends. And he helped craft this deck a little bit as well, including the Searing Spears. And I'm in constant communication with him about the deck. He tested a bunch, and he took down a PTQ. 10-0-1'd it. So, like, I mean, it's awesome not only to know that this deck is good going into the Invitational, but to know that he's, like, finally back in the Pro Tour after 3 years.
Yeah, at Pro Tour San Diego, which he's it's not San Diego?
No, it's...
Oh, man, I thought it was going to be San Diego.
No, it's
because that would have been so poetically perfect, but
yes.
he has to go to Dublin. Rats.
Yeah, he gets the flight to Dublin.
Yeah, that's too bad for him, I guess.
Yeah, so yeah, in between every break at the Open, I was just talking sideboarding during his top 8 matches. It was wonderful.
So you have theory success. You've put it together in your mind. You've played it on Moto. You also have real world success in the hands of Jake Van Lunen.
Yep.
And now you're going to be testing it at the Invitational, facing down the metagame that you've sort of pictured in your mind. And you think that this is a well-positioned deck for this weekend. How do you see this deck going forward?
The format's not going to react to it for a couple of weeks, so like anyone that likes decks like this, I think this is a really good choice. It's very good against hyper-aggressive strategies like Doom Traveler into Cartel Aristocrat, Blood Artist, Boros Rocket. I mean, it's a joke, right?
So it's really good online.
It's very good online. My Esper and Blue-White Red matchups, I'm going 50-50 or I'm punting. So it's true.
Fair enough.
The matches are long. And... But I think it's a great choice for a while, and I don't think people are going to get used to it right away because it is such a powerful mid-range strategy. Like, people have to get polarized again. Like, I feel like this deck, though, is going to knock Junk off the table because it's such a good matchup. And if Junk is off the table again, then I think, Control probably gets to prey on the metagame again. So, like, next week this will be good, the week after that, and then I'm pretty sure that Esper or Blue-White Red or Bant, one of the 3 is going to take over the metagame in about a month.
Well, luckily the Invitational isn't in a month.
And we get a new set in a month.
So who knows what's going to happen after Dragon's Maze comes out. But for now, we are on Act 2. That's what we're calling this deck.
Yes, Act 2.
Or the Aristocrats.
No. Okay.
Yeah, all right.
You get it.
This is Act 2 of the Aristocrats, as we have been referring to it.
Yes.
Brad, thank you so much for joining me on the sideboard.